Well, thank you very much for having us here. I'm not the first time to be in the Archie Marathon. I was here 2 years ago. That's the moment I met a lot of friends here in Milan. Uh, my name is Gong. We are architecture office from Beijing. So today, I'm going to talk about one of our recent finished projects. It's Alila Yangshuo. It's actually a hotel in the southern part of China. Well, this right spot indicating the location of the project is in the very southern part of China. And you see the red line, the frame, is the specific location of the site. So the river, the name of the river is Lijiang, which is supposed to be the most beautiful river landscape in China too. So it's a very unique location, and for architect, I think it's a very precious opportunity to design something special. And that's the picture of the surrounding mountain water. And you see on the right side, that's the site. And the picture was taken about 15 years ago. So besides this beautiful landscape scenery, we also have another very important factor of the site, which is existing sugar mill factory, which you already can see in this picture. And that's another angle of the site. The small piece of land in the middle, that's the site before the new architecture intervention. All right, so this is the cover of Chinese military magazine in the year of 1972. And the building on the cover is actually the sugar mill I mentioned. That's the condition of the sugar mill before we did anything. So it's almost like an abandoned factory existing on site. The sugar mill factory actually was built in the 1950s, but around 1980, there's a governmental policy to protect the Lijiang River. They shut down all the factories alongside. So the sugar mill was one of them. But very fortunately, it was not fully demolished, but almost collapsed. And that's inside. So that's the condition of the site. So we have two very important factors that we have to consider. One is the beautiful natural landscape. Another one is this artificial heritage, which is industrial building. I had this chance before I designed. I had a lunch with the people who work inside the factory 20 years ago. And I feel they have a pride to have such an experience, because at that time, if you can work in a governmental factory in China, that's something you could be proud of. So this structure, existing factory, has a lot of emotional relationship with the local people. So it's not only a physical structure, it's something about the mental state of the local people. Well, we always design on site. This is the very first round of sketch and design sort of study, literally on site. Eventually, we decide to control this building profile as a very, very horizontal contour. We believe in this kind of artificial horizontality complement this natural verticality of the mountain, because the mountain is almost vertical, 90 degree. The terminology of that type of mountain is karstic geographical feature. And in terms of this location, we still keep this original sugar mill in the center. And we have two new additions of this new building volume. One is on the right hand is the typical room suite volume. Another one is the villa part. So two two volumes actually is flunking alongside the old building. The old building is still in the center of the site. And gradually, we came up with some spatial concept for the new building volume, inspired by the local mountain and cave. So you can see in the very old time, when people want to cross the mountain from one side to another, they literally cut in a walkway in the mountain and then connect the two sides of the mountain. And because of the geographical feature, you always can find this kind of cave in the local mountains. So this kind of nature character inspires us for the building space. We create a continuous walkway, connect three, like a cave space. It's a public terrace. You will see some pictures later on. And then eventually it will become this schematic model of the architecture. I will show you a very short video to give you an overall sense. Excuse me, can you play the video for us? This is the video after the completion of the building. This is one of the cave I was talking about. Well, it's not very smooth. There's some problem with the video playing, actually. It will be longer than 15 minutes. Well, it's getting okay. It's much slower than it should be. You cannot change? But, okay. Just decide to play it again. Yeah, this time is better. Yeah. That's the central plaza of the whole hotel complex. So you can see the original factory structure is still dictating the whole space. Still not right, but let's just. That's the corridor connecting you from the front desk to the typical room. It's also a drop-off area for the car. The main material is actually the stacking masonry made by concrete block and a particular type of local stone. I will explain that later. This is one of the walkway I was talking about. It's a parallel system with the functional corridor. It's more like you can walk there without any purpose, just meandering through the space. That's actually inside the typical room building. And the facade is the stacking masonry system. It's made by concrete block and local stone. the installation is bamboo. It's a very local material. That's the balcony. Well, this structure is still the old structure. It's the truss. Originally, it takes the sugarcane from the river to the factory, and then we keep the structure, and then to design a swimming pool inside the space. And it always rains in that weather. This is from across the street, a very old village. It's like a collage of this very natural landscape, very local building with a very contemporary architecture. Okay, can we go back to the PPT? All right, so I'll be quick. So the master plan, as I said before, in the center part, we design a reflecting pond. Functionally, it's actually the fire extinguished water. And then the cluster of the smaller volumes is the old structure of the factory. The long linear one and the one on the very right-hand side is the new addition of the hotel. And that's a very simple first floor plan. Well, we put a lot of time on the study of the material because we want the material to have a subtle consistency with the factory. So eventually we decide to keep the logic of this stacking masonry tectonic detail, but we apply a concrete as the main material because we think this concrete can give us the more freedom to play with the light and the wind come through. So this is the study model in the design process. And then later on, this is the model we did inside our office. It's made by foam, and we just test the opacity and the transparency of the material. And then we go into factory, but we really had a very hard time to find the collaborator. So eventually, the client actually set up their own factory to make this special material. So you can see the building volume behind that. This is a very small factory in front of the building. And that's the process of making this hollow concrete block. It's a casted process. And this is normally the procedure when they cast this concrete block. It's hollow, so it looks lighter than a solid block. It's kind of tricky when you stack them together because you can see the material is made of one layer of local stone and one layer of this hollowed concrete block. Because we have to resist the lateral force, so there will be a steel bar hidden inside, connect from the lower floor to the top floor. But as you can imagine, this is the steel bar, the rebar reinforced the whole stacking wall. So you can imagine that the last piece of the concrete block is very hard to install. So we actually get this smart idea from the local construction workers. It's not my idea. They don't weld the rebar to the very top, and they leave a space to put 2 blocks of stone before, and then they push up the final piece of stone, and then slide the final concrete block inside. So it's a very smart craftsmanship. Well, that's eventually how the wall is completed. So in China, as a Chinese architect, as you know, we don't have the same quality of industrial construction quality in European city or in Japan. But I think there's some very specific condition that architect always can take advantage of. You work with the local people, yeah, while trying to be quick. You have to give a couple minutes more because of the movie. Yeah, that's basically how the material looks like. Well, some other pictures showing the completed situation of the architecture. That's the overall bird's eye view. Some shot across the village. That's the central pond I mentioned, which is actually a fire extinguished water. Twilight. We have a sunken plaza inside the pond to give a different height how the people perceive the water reflection. And this kind of one of the cave space in the middle. Corridor. That's the parallel functional corridor and walkway system. So there are two kind of systems parallel each other. And this is the entrance of the spa. The spa is actually on the basement. So there's a ramp, stair, connect the people from the ground level to the basement. Restaurant. This is actually renovated from the old structure. We did very minimum decoration about the interior space. Typical room. Villa room. Actually, this is the front yard of the villa part. That's the old structure of the truss from another angle. That's when the light comes from inside, so the stacking wall gives you the transparency and the lightness. That's it. Thank you very much.
The jury just has one question. Can you get us all a discount at the spa?
Of course. Whenever you go, let me know.
Okay. No, well, I was just interested because you started with the new buildings and then you restored the old ones. How was the process? Because it was, I know it was kind of a long process, no? Or no? Or you worked them contemporaneously?
From the client side?
Yeah.
They actually, they just drove along the National Expressway and they saw the old building and they fell in love with the old building. So they bought a triangular site together with the old structure. So when we design, we have to face old building with this every condition.
So the old building has been transformed into the restaurant and the main public.
Yeah, restaurant,
so
public
say
programs.
the old building is the public
yes.
functions and the private ones and the new buildings.
Yes. Yeah.
He answered. No, that was my question. What was the center here?
So you answered.
Already.
Yeah, you answered. Okay. Clear.
All right, thank you.